This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
The doctors on 700 WLW. Appreciate you listening today. It's got to be very, very frustrating if you are somebody who knows the right things to do. If you are elected to a position to do a job and you know what has to be done, but your hands are tied. No, your hands aren't tied by political opinion or your job. That's what happens to a lot of them. Their hands get tied because they don't want to lose their job if somebody gets offended that they're doing the right thing. But your hands are tied by past rules, regulations, and laws. When other people kowtowed to special interest groups, other elected servants past, they kowtowed because they were worried about their jobs. That's got to be incredibly frustrating. That's one of the reasons I was supportive of SB 5. I wanted local municipalities to have the right to decide whether or not they were going to honor collective bargaining, to do the right things, to make some changes. Not to attack public workers, not to attack police, firefighter, or teachers, but to open it up so people can have those discussions and come up with the best plans, that we're not locked into these old, rigid confinements that get us in trouble. And I really feel bad for Dayton, for example. Well, we had the Department of Justice getting on him, saying that there's not enough black cops and firefighters. Now imagine having to deal with the Department of Justice when you're saying, listen, we're trying to run a city. We're trying to run a city that has been severely hurt by an economic downturn for decades now, in a state that's been hurt, in a region that's been hurt, in a country that's been hurt. We don't have the money, and we've got to hire new police officers. And while we're doing our best, the Department of Justice comes in and says, you don't have enough black officers. You have to change. You have to listen to us. Big Brother in D.C. overstepping their bounds. From Pajamas Media, Joe Hicks joins me now. How are you, Joe?
Hey, Doc. Good to be with you.
Good to have you with me. It's very frustrating. Can you imagine being Dayton and having to deal with this stuff?
Well, I can't imagine it because it's happened all around the country. It's happening in New York City with the firefighters, happening there in Dayton with the police. It's happened in Chicago with the police. I mean, this, of course, we saw the Supreme Court ruling finally in the Ricci DiStefano case with firefighters in New Haven. So this whole attempt to, sort of count noses and bean counters getting involved and how many people of what kind of colors we have in various kind of positions is just incredibly bad for our society. And this kind of thing has got to stop. Who cares what color the cop is who comes to your home if you've been burglarized? You're not looking at him and going, oh, wait a minute, I really wanted a black cop. Nobody cares. Nobody cares, Yet the bean counters, the bureaucrats, the politically correct do care, and I think it's really awful that we found ourselves in this kind of position.
That's a great point. Listen, if you pull me over, I'm not going to be happy with you, regardless of your race, color, gender. It's not going to matter. But if you're the guy that's coming to my house saving me when somebody's shooting the place up in the middle of the night, I'm gonna love you regardless of those things.
Don't care.
It really doesn't matter. Joe, this whole thing in Dayton, it really comes down to the Department of Justice. I know it has a lot to do with the decades of special interests, and power grabs and that. But right now, this boils down to a Department of Justice that is failing.
Well, here's the dirty little secret here. We've got probably the most politically, motivated Justice Department under Eric Holder that this country has seen in recent times. Now, let's pull in some other elements here. This Eric Holder and the Justice Department is the department that was involved in this horrible case in Philadelphia where a couple of new Black Panther Party members, hard to get that out of my mouth, these guys stood outside of a polling place in 2008, one guy brandishing a billy club. It was a textbook case of voter intimidation. The charges were filed. These guys were on their way to severe punishment when the DOJ then looked at it and said, we're going to dismiss all the charges. So some argue that there's racial motivation going on here. The Justice Department thinks there's a double standard. The only civil rights violations happen when they're directed against minorities or blacks. White people are not somehow people who can have civil rights violations against them. So here you've got the DOJ with that kind of political and racial baggage involving itself in Dayton, Ohio, involving itself in the issue in the firefighter case in New York City. So this is a bad thing when you've got a Justice Department that has a double standard or a different standard for how it views justice. Two of the individuals, by the way, that were involved in the Black Panther Party dismissing those charges are involved in the case in Dayton. They're also involved in the case in New York City.
Wait a minute, involved in? You mean they're ginning it up? They're pressing the lawsuits?
They're pressing. They're joining local forces in New York City. They joined with the so-called Vulcan Society, Society of Black Firefighters, to sue the city around its hiring application process for the fire department. They have likewise joined the case in Dayton. So you've got the federal government under Eric Holder's Justice Department suing these local municipalities around their application process and the exams, and the idea being they want to excuse the ability of minority applicants to fail tests, and then they will come behind and say, oh, the tests are biased. Wait a minute, 1 and 1 is still 2. You know, some of these questions don't have any racial implications at all.
Well, Joe, I had a guy on from the NAACP last week from the national chapter, and his determination of whether or not it was biased was simply that there weren't enough blacks that were achieving on it. That's the ultimate indication if it's bias. That makes no sense to me.
It obviously makes no sense. That's why organizations like the NAACP become completely irrelevant. These guys are now involved in picking up rocks to try to find racism because everybody knows. I'm not saying, you're always going to have bigots in society,
sure,
in any society. But we've reached a point in this country where racism is not the kind of thing that impacts what black people or any other minority or anybody for that matter can do or not do.
Yeah, this is not, I can't sit at a lunch counter and enjoy a sandwich. I can't walk across the street without somebody beating me. It's none of the stuff that it used to be. I mean, it comes down to, social justice and that argument.
Doc, I interviewed with a Birmingham radio station about some local issues there, and I was informed by the host of the show that the head of the police department in Birmingham, Alabama, with all the imagery, Bull Connors, et cetera, the head of the police department of Birmingham, Alabama was, drum roll please, a black guy. So, we've come a long way in this country, and this notion that we've got a Justice Department now saying to us, and we're supposed to accept this, that there can be racial issues involved in whether or not a black guy or black woman passes an entrance exam. By the way, I would assume that your listeners want the most competent people wearing a badge and carrying a gun and a nightstick and all those kinds of things. If it's a firefighter, you want the firefighter to know what they need to do to put out the fire at your home. You want competent people. You don't want some clown who can't pass the exam doing that job. You want people who know what the hell they're doing.
Joe, as God is my witness, I want the best people in in every position, whether it's cop, firefighter, or making my cheeseburger, the most competent people in every position in America. And I don't care if the police force is all black, all Asian, without one white person, as long as they are the most competent people and it is truly a fair process.
That should be the only standard. This notion of, the black population in the city is X, therefore the proportion of the police in that city has to be X. It's nonsense.
Joe, you'll love this. Last week when I talked to the guy from the NAACP, I brought that up, and he said, well, we want it to look like an area, so on and so forth. And I said, okay. I said, are you out talking to the NBA? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, the NBA is primarily black. And I am not kidding, Joe. He said he didn't know that. He said he didn't realize, and I said, it's only 18% white. I said, and obviously the most qualified people are in those positions, so that's great. He said he didn't know that.
Yeah, let's turn Al Sharpton onto that little problem there,
Hey, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was.
Well, go ahead.
Before I let you go, I do want to get on one other thing. I want to mention the Lockerbie bomber. I know you did a story last August on this when he was out by 1 year, and I just want you to touch on it right now. That this guy is still alive and well, and we are coming up this August on 2 years, and he was only supposed to live 3 months.
Not only is he alive and well and living in the lap of luxury, this guy was in the process of building a brand new palatial mansion that only got interrupted by the recent bombing and the civil war in Libya. I mean, it's an outrage that this government, the British government, the Scottish government, has allowed this guy to escape scot-free. And it was all about, by the way, the need for ongoing oil deals with Libya that allowed this guy to escape after bringing down that Pan Am flight, killing 270 people. It's outrageous what has happened there.
189 Americans died. They said they were letting him out because he was going to die within 3 months. It really turned out to be the oil deal. But his life since then, he's not living in some home or living on food stamps or something. This guy is loaded. He's living the life.
He's living large, throwing parties. The guy, left prison into a life of, incredibly luxurious kind of lifestyle.
Wow.
And as I said, the guy was building himself a brand new home.
That's incredible.
When the bombing just interrupted the building process.
Well, I appreciate the work you do. Appreciate the insight and all the information. Joe Hicks, Pajama Media.
Hey, Doc, good to talk to you anytime.
Thank you very much, sir. Can you believe that? He was let out on humanitarian reasons because he was going to die any day now. Mind you, 189 Americans died, 270-some people, period, in 1988. All of those people died. The guy has killed more people than serial killers, which we execute in America. He didn't even get life in prison because of an oil deal that was done behind the scenes with BP, the British government, the Scottish government, and the American government simply writing a letter in opposition to it instead of saying he will not be released. We have that type of power still. We're just barely hanging on to it, but we still have that type of influence that say he will not be released from prison. But we didn't do that. And now the guy who is going to die within a couple of months is living an opulent lifestyle. This August will be 2 years since he got out of prison. It's Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Fox 19 Storm Tracker forecast for meteorologist Frank Marzullo. You got severe T-storms possible this afternoon, gusty winds. You could see some hail. You might want to be on the safe side and take your car inside, get it under the cover if you have a possibility to do so. Afternoon high around 71 tonight, light rain and snow mixed. Overnight low around 36. You could see some early snow tomorrow morning for your commute as well. It's not looking good. 62 right now, 700 WLW. Hey, speaking of the Dayton Police Department and the blacks getting the added advantage of being able to fail the test and still continue on if they want to be a police officer, there have been major declines in cities like Dayton, other areas that have been traditionally black strongholds, Chicago, Oakland, Atlanta, St. Louis. You've seen urban centers. Well, we know across the state of Ohio, just the big cities have seen the population drop. I think Detroit is down in the last decade by 25%. But not just the population in general. In particular, blacks are leaving the middle of the cities. The black population is declining. They say that's in growing numbers for the cities. And there's a couple of main reasons why. According to the census data, 20 of the 25 cities that have at least 250,000 people and 20% black population has either lost more blacks or gained fewer in the past decade than in the 90s. Three main reasons. Number one, blacks who are now getting into the middle class and upper middle class and upper class when it comes to their finances are leaving the cities for the suburbs, which means all those years where we heard white flight. Remember that? White flight. White people are fleeing the cities Big phrase in the 70s and 80s. White flight, the reason they're leaving, they don't want to be around those black people. That was part of the argument. And maybe some of that was true. But it also shows you that it comes down to economics. Because the blacks are now leaving the cities when they get some dough. Because they don't want the outrageous taxes. They don't want the government control and the taxes where you're paying for somebody else. And that's what happens in a lot of cities. The second reason blacks are leaving northern cities for thriving centers in the South. And the third reason they cite is the aging of the black population. The growth rate has dropped more than 16% in the 90s to about 10% since 2000. So you see the older people dying off in the cities, so those numbers are decreasing there. But I think it's interesting. It really comes down to spending the money, and I want a better lifestyle. I want a nice big house in the suburbs. Listen, I've said it yesterday, I think I'd love to live in cities as much as I'd love a little bit of land. But the reason I won't do it, it's not worth it. All the different factors, the things I would gain for like being able to go to restaurants and having theaters and museums and stuff nearby, maybe even walk to them. I'd love to renovate a building. All of those advantages don't outweigh the outrageous ideas and the outrageous spending. And apparently that's true for a lot of blacks.
And now, Doc Thompson's totally acceptable racist joke of the day.
What do you call a white man in court? What do you call a white man in court? The lawyer.
This has been
the totally acceptable
racist joke of the day on the Doc Thompson Radio Show.
The diversity director for the University of Colorado Student Government. That's funny by itself. I don't think I have to say anything else. That's like a stand-up line. That's like a Henny Youngman one-liner. The diversity director for the University of Colorado Student Government. Yes, there is a diversity director. They have resigned. His name is Matthew. He's resigned after officials saw copies of his blog postings. One blog posting said, "Women are not as smart as men." This is the diversity director. Now, Matthew argues that it was clearly satirical and he was joking around. He originally posted, the title was "Today's Stupid Human Beings," and then he reposted it onto a website that he has. The blog said, and I'll let you be the judge if he was being satirical, he says, "Guys, I don't need to tell you this. Women are not as smart as men. Now, before all you chicks look up from your gossip mags and yammer on and on as you do about that sexist, I don't mean all women. I'm sure there are a couple of heifers in Congress or the Senate who are about on par with the average male. Also, that Asian character on Grey's Anatomy knows some big words, but she obviously doesn't count because, well, she's Asian." I think it's pretty funny. No, I don't agree with it, but if it is satire, it's pretty funny. Doesn't matter, though. There are some things you cannot joke about. You can joke about white people, as I do all the time with my acceptable racist joke of the day. But you can't joke about everybody else, and certainly not women, as Matthew found out, because the vice president of external affairs for the University of Colorado Student Government, her name is Allison Foley. And she was quite upset with his posting. She said he was asked to resign and agreed immediately. She said he didn't break any CUSG rules. However, we all agreed that it would be best if he were to resign from his position. So, even as diversity director, somebody who obviously cares about the nonsensical terms of diversity, which essentially just means we don't want whitey, you can't joke. You can't have a sense of humor. Because when you're diversity director, it's all about people being offended. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Coming up today, 12:06, the Bulldog in for Willie again. Today, 12:06, right here on 700 WLW. 11:06 this morning, I'm going to talk to William Heinrich. He's the author of What Was I Thinking? The Dumb Things That People Do. I will follow that with many dumb things that people have done recently in the news. Jeff Springfield, you're on the big one, 700 WLW.
Yeah, I listen to this station all the time, and it seems that you're just way preoccupied with anything that you can say to downgrade or degrade black people. Why is that?
That I'm downgrading black people?
Yeah, or trying to degrade or trying to build up the white hate against black people.
Because I'm talking about what's going on in Dayton, you see that as me attacking black people?
Well, I said what I said. Now you answer the question.
No, I want to understand why you think that. That is obviously not true,
Well,
so I want to understand why you think it.
Well, is it true?
No, of course it's not true. So I want to know why you think that.
Keep doing it.
No, because I'm talking about the news. You see the news and things in the news as degrading black people?
You are obsessed with trying to degrade and downgrade and make it seem that black people are the worst thing that ever happened to America.
I have said that black people are the worst thing for America?
I said, can you hear?
Where would you get that? Simply by talking about the news?
No.
See, Jeff, it seems like you are obsessed with race.
No, you're obsessed with race. I'm calling about you talking on the radio.
So
I'm talking about you every day talking about dating this. You know, how many black people were hung?
Hang on a second, Jeff. Hang on. So, wait, I want to clarify, then I'll let you speak your piece. Wait a minute. I got to right the wrongs here. You're telling me that every day I talk about race and talk about race yesterday.
When you're driving in, how many times?
No. I didn't talk about race yesterday.
No, you talk.
So do you want to amend what you said from every day?
You are obsessed with it.
So let me ask you, Jeff, do you think it's wrong that the Dayton Police Department had to lower their test scores in order to allow blacks to get to achieve?
Well, I put it like this. There probably is a reason why they need more black police officers, okay?
Why does race matter, Jeff? Are you obsessed with race? You're obsessed with race. Why would that matter for cops?
Wait a minute.
You're obviously obsessed with race.
Well, okay, so you are 100% totally convinced that there is no reason to have black police officers.
No, I think it should be based on merit. I don't care if they're all black or they're all white or some mix. But when you change the test to allow blacks to get those positions when they didn't pass the test or didn't beat other people in the test, guess what? I think that's wrong. You think that's obsessed with race?
No.
So do you think that's wrong? Do you think that's wrong?
Okay, put it like this. There is a reason why the black people have a disadvantage when it comes to taking tests.
And what is that?
Okay. The reason is from slavery all the way in through past Jim Crow all the way into 1965, we have been denied the right to learn and to be freely educated.
So now, let me understand here, Jeff. Hang on. Let me understand thus far. Let me understand what you're saying. Let me understand. Because of slavery all the way up until now. Wait a minute. Hang on a second. I want to make sure I'm getting it right here. Then you can do. Up until now, because of that, blacks can't achieve to the same level on the test the Dayton Police Department.
That's right. That's all across the country.
Well, I got to tell you, Jeff. I got to tell you.
Because they have been denied the same opportunity, and it used to be against the law to teach black people.
And that was a long time ago, Jeff. And yet you're defending that based on race, and you're saying I'm the one obsessed with race. I think we all know. David Blaustein joins me now, ABC News Entertainment. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Doc?
You want to dive into race, or should we talk about something else?
Why don't we talk about race? That is my area of expertise. If we're talking about the amazing race, yes.
The amazing race. Very good. Tell me about Liz Taylor. She unfortunately passed away today.
Yeah, and, Elizabeth Taylor has been in poor health for years. She was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, I think, 7 years ago, and we know she went into the hospital 6 weeks ago with congestive heart failure, but the fact that they were keeping her in the hospital for so long was really reason for concern, and today we find out that a lot of people's worst fear was realized, and she passed away this morning surrounded by her 4 children. But you talk about Elizabeth Taylor, and you talk about someone who is legendary on screen and off the screen. You're talking about a 2-time Academy Award winner, who appeared in many, many great movies, who started acting, who got her first Hollywood contract when she was 8, appeared in her first movie when she was 9, and was really one of the most stunning actresses to ever grace a movie screen. And I think it's unfortunate that a few of the younger generations who probably have never bothered to go back and look at some of Elizabeth Taylor's earlier work, especially the films in color, know just how beautiful and stunning this woman was.
I got to be honest with you. I'm in my early 40s, and my knowledge, except for one film, which was not of my time, of Liz Taylor is the fatter, the older Liz Taylor. Whereas, and the only reason I know the younger one is because I stumbled upon the movie Giant one time, and it became one of my favorite movies, and she's stunning in it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's sort of that Obi-Wan Kenobi conundrum. If you strike me down now, I'll be far more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And now that Elizabeth Taylor has died, I think it's going to pique some people's curiosity, and they'll go back and they'll check out her work. I point to Cleopatra because there is no movie where she looked as stunning. Her dark complexion, her dark hair, her eyebrows in contrast with those incredible, piercing, memorable, expressive blue eyes, really extraordinary. And I think it's something that the executives at Universal and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer noticed when she was a child, this young child with these very thick eyebrows and these incredible blue eyes and the dark hair. I think that's one of the things that they noticed right away, even though movies at that point were done in black and white and you couldn't see it. But there's so much to talk about with Elizabeth Taylor. We don't possibly have time, but we can talk about the 2 Academy Awards. We can talk about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf or Butterfield 8. But we also have to talk about off screen and her 8 marriages, and you do the math.
That's
funny,
incredible.
She was married 8 times, but she was married to 7 men, which means she was married to somebody twice, and that gentleman would be Richard Burton. And she was in at least 7 different films with Richard Burton, and you also look at some of the other people, her first marriage, she was married to a Hilton. She was married to Eddie Fisher for 5 years, and some people more recently might remember that she was married to some guy named Larry Pertensky, and that was interesting. It was they got married in 1991, and he was considerably younger than her. And for the uninitiated who didn't know about Elizabeth Taylor at the time, it seemed weird. And also, Elizabeth Taylor was very close with Michael Jackson, and certainly
that was
Michael Jackson.
Odd.
No for his idiosyncrasies, and Elizabeth Taylor battling alcoholism and various health issues with pictures of her in a wheelchair, not looking good. It was an odd association for a younger generation who probably had no idea what an incredible actress this woman once was.
David Blaustein from ABC News Entertainment. I got to ask you, if you had to narrow it down, and I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, all of the networks are going to be showing all kinds of Liz Taylor movies and documentaries and stuff. If you had to narrow it down to just a couple of movies for somebody that is unfamiliar with her work, what are those movies that they should see?
I would probably say A Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is my favorite
Sexy.
Elizabeth Taylor movie. I love that movie. I also like Cleopatra. I would say A Place in the Sun is definitely a great Elizabeth Taylor movie to see, because it was an interesting time in her career. She was making that transition from teen actress to adult actress, and I think Hollywood really took notice of her at that point. And that's when the critics started to say, wow, this Elizabeth Taylor can act. I mean, for me, had I been around at that time, I may have said the same thing, but for me, it's always going to be Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
How about in 1994, the Flintstones, when she played Pearl Slaghoople? That wouldn't be one of the 3 that
would probably be a classic, and I'm still angry at the Academy for overlooking her in that role.
All right, David Blaustein, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me.
My pleasure.
I've never seen Cleopatra. There's a bunch of them I haven't seen. I know Giant, though, is one of my favorite movies of all time. It probably makes my top 25 list. It's just a great epic, and it's got the characters are so rich, and you live in it, and then it has a great kind of summation and meaning at the end. It's a great movie. Liz Taylor, Rock Hudson, and James Dean in that one. All right, more of your calls coming up. I think somebody wants, and a couple people actually want to respond to the last caller. We'll get to that on 700 WLW. Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. At my blog, 700WLW.com, I have the list of suggested articles for the Jihadist Cosmo-esque magazine. I mentioned it yesterday on the air, and we had some article. Well, what it is, Al-Qaeda is backing a magazine for jihadist women who love martyrs. And I had some thoughts on possible articles. You know, they put them all over the front of the magazine. Those are at 700WLW.com. Whole bunch of them up there. Mount Adams, Jeff, you're on the big one.
And don't we all love martyrs?
Who doesn't?
Come on,
I know.
Hey, I just one name and a point. First off, George Washington Carver, wasn't he a black guy?
Yes, he was.
But didn't he succeed? I think he still holds not the record for the most patent, but he was a good contender.
Had a bunch of them. Did a lot for farming and actually taught a lot of people how to farm, rotate crops, stuff like that.
Yeah, but how did he succeed? I'm lost at that. But then also, so we're supposed to, for how long, bend the rules and the standards because the French, English, and Spanish brought slavery to America how long ago?
It's frustrating to me, Jeff, and this stuff comes up. The guy said, I'm obsessed with race or whatever. It is, in fact, a news story. It is an outrageous news story. It is a blight on all of us. And this is one that is hurting our area in particular. First of all, you've got it in Dayton. Then you've got Cincinnati looking at hiring a new police chief. And when the information came out, they said they were going to look for a guy who makes sure to care about diversity. Well, that is code for don't hire white people. And I'm going to call it like it is now. I don't care about race. I don't defend myself on that charge very often because I've moved beyond it. I don't care. I don't have to defend myself. But I'm going to call out when it's wrong. I'm going to mention it. I am a consistent person. If you are being racist against white people or racist against black people or Jews or anybody else, I'm going to call it out. It's wrong and it doesn't need to exist. It is not a part of my life. I drive down the road, it doesn't cross my mind until I hear outrageous stories in the news where they throw out words like diversity, which means don't hire whitey. And I'm going to point to that and tell you how outrageous it is. That's what it means. I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. We've gotten used to it. Police chiefs and people say, Cincinnati say they're going to hire a police chief. We want somebody who's going to concentrate on diversity. It doesn't even cross our minds. We have been so brainwashed that we accept that. Oh, he's going to concentrate on diversity. The little lines are thrown in there. When what it's saying is we are going to be racist. I'm tired of the double standard. Think about when you fill out an application or when you see an ad in the newspaper for a job and they say, such and such is an equal opportunity employer. We strongly encourage women and minorities to apply. That's contradictory right there. They're an equal opportunity employer, but they're encouraging certain people to apply. That's hilarious. If it wasn't so offensive, if it wasn't so troubling. But we have accepted those things, and I have decided I no longer will accept them. So when these stories are in the news and I bring them to you, I will point out the racism, whether it's against black people or white people. It's Doc Thompson on 700 WLW. Check out Lance's deal of the day, 700WLW.com. You get half off the Cadillac Ranch. Just look for the banner for Lance's deal of the day to get $25 gift certificate for only $12.50 at the Cadillac Ranch, downtown Cincinnati. It's all at 700WLW.com. And that's where me, Sloaney Tracy, Jim, Eric Dieters, and, of course, Mark Amazon, all broadcasting live opening day. I'm just getting giddy. It's like cabin fever. I can't wait till opening day. And this week, warmer weather. I get up at, 5 in the morning. I'm driving into work, and it's warm out. And, oh, here it comes. Then you find out it's going to start turning colder, a little more snow. It's not good. Just keep focusing on opening day. A week from tomorrow, we're almost there. Then summer. Opening day, 1 week. Doc Thompson, home of the Reds, 700 WLW.